So the results are in for week 2 of Blitz Skirmish Season 12, and barring some pretty crazy things happening in week 3, it's very clear that everyone's going to be safe all the way through this season and into the next. So let's look at the results, talk a bit about that. I'll back up my statement with the numbers in today's video.
A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando.
Hey there, my flesh and blood friends. Welcome back to the channel for a recap of week 2 of Blitz Skirmish Season 12, and 97 more games logged this week. It'll be the biggest, or at least it's projected to be the biggest of the season, and this was the week where we did start to see some things separate. If you recall, headed into this, I was constantly warbling back and forth on whether I thought Florian was the best deck or Kayo was the best deck. And then last week, the two of them plus Aurora all tied for first place at 8. But this week we see that both of them have really started to extend their lead on the pack. So it'll be very interesting to see how things go into the last week, which will be the smallest week, and see how things flush out, especially considering that going into the third week, a lot of people may have won and it might be on different decks. So it's always kind of a little fun to see how that goes. So what we're going to do, we'll go ahead and recap the week 2 actual breakdown results, and then we'll go in and we'll talk numbers. But, you know, the TLDR is that barring some pretty crazy things happening, everyone's going to be alive through, not only through this season, but after this season. I don't think we're going to lose anybody, but we'll talk about it. So week 2, as I mentioned, a total of 97 different events. Kayo and Florian both on 12. Aurora still at the top 3, but this time with 9. Blaze extending hers above on 8. We have Arachne at 6, and then Verdance again at 6. So last week was not a fluke. Verdance was able to do it again this week, and not necessarily at the top, but definitely sitting at the top. I'm very impressed that hero can do what she needs to do without Stormstriders. Speaks a lot to both the pilots on these decks, but also just her raw strength, the raw strength of Earth, shall we say. With Felling of the Crown in Blitz format, maybe that has something to do with it. Dromai at 5. So again, Dromai not a fluke last week. I don't think that's super surprising with, board state stuff. Also, you have a lot of Dromai purists out doing that. So 5 wins across the field for Dromai. Dash Database at 4. Lexi and Syndra popping her head up at 3. And then we had a whole smattering of 2. We had Datadol, Quickie P, Prism, Other Prism, Riptide, Valda bringing down 2, Zen at 2, Flattering Showman up from 1 last week. He is now, that's the new Bravo, remember, he's now at 2. Puffin login 2, that's pretty cheeky. And then 11 other heroes on the wins. Notably, we did get a Bravo win, an OG Bravo win, I should say. And we did get an OG Dorinthea win. Okay, that's big because if you recall, headed into this season, they were the 2 at the top of the charts. Okay, and now with their multiplier earning at a 6.5 points per event, and their multiplier 10 points per event, like 9.9 or whatever it is per event. It's very, very, very significant. We also had Berserker Runt bring himself down, Levia. Shiana finally pulled one down. We had 1 each for Enigma and New Moon, and then the new Kassai, excuse me. No, not, I wish it was OG Kassai. OG Kassai would have got way more than 1 win. Let's just say that. Kassai knew Olympia. What? And then Azalea. Go Olympia. All right. He doesn't even need the new gold. Apparently, you can just do the thing. So as I mentioned, we had 97 this week. That brings us to a total of 181 logged skirmishes thus far, with a projection of 237. So it is likely that there were some carryovers on the week 2 data, and it is likely then that there will be some carryovers into the week 3 data to round it out. Week 3 could, in theory, be higher than 45, right, because of some carryovers. So we'll see how that all plays out. But if we go down and we look at the actual points versus the potential points, see a similar trend in that the heroes have logged more living legend points than were available if you were to have just done the raw math of number of events times 6.5 points, right? So once we put in the multiplier, what that shows us is that, yes, we are still continuing to see more points logged, meaning more established heroes winning. However, that gap has closed pretty significantly, right? Last week we had roughly 50 point bonus, and now it's only a 9 point bonus ish, right? So we did see that gap has closed with some additional younger heroes, and young heroes making their way to the top again across the biggest week that we've seen so far by about 10 and change events. Okay, so what you see across the screen right now is the field as it stands today, logged by the hero who has earned the most living legend points, which is Kayo. Okay, so this is who has logged the most points, not necessarily who has won the most events. You do see Kayo at 20 total wins with 130 points, Aurora with 110 points, Arachne Solitary Confinement with 107, and so on and so on. Now, keep in mind that with that multiplier, right, Florian only being at 0.5, is doing quite well, matched exactly to Kayo, but I mean, that's how math works. Far, far, far less points. Okay, so now let's move on to looking at it top down from the win standpoint. You do see Kayo just at the top, he's tied with Florian, and then Aurora right there, Blaze at 14. So if we then go and we look at the current LL standings, or I should say the distance to LL. If we look at Blaze at 827 specifically, right, let's go ahead and look at her there at the top. Blaze at 827 specifically, she's got to do some pretty crazy things in order to actually be able to, right, keep in mind that we only have 45 out there, right, headed into next week, roughly 45 events. She would need 27. So she would need to log basically half of the events, right? Give or take a change or two. You look at Kayo. Kayo has 32 wins remaining at his current 798. He would, not quite as many. He's in the 40-ish percent-ish range. But that's, again, from what we've seen on this season, with the season being very wide open. I mean, you saw the donut, right? From the season being very wide open, having someone winning close to 50%. Now, where things, if anything were to happen, which it's totally not going to happen, by the way, right? But if anything weird were going to happen, I actually do think it would be on, you see at the bottom there, I think it would actually be on Dorinthea and Bravo is actually probably the most likely crazy town scenario to happen. Because again, at 10 points, if somehow in small town BFE, wherever, they run a bunch of skirmishes, and so I don't know, right? I'm just saying, I think it's more likely that if something crazy is going to happen, it's going to be something really crazy, and it's not going to be at your, Kayo, Florian, or a Blaze area. I think it's totally going to be in Dorinthea or Bravo probably are the most likely to have something crazy happen. Because I don't think Kayo is going to come in and get 40%. But you could get, I don't think you're going to get as many wins as Dorinthea and Bravo need, because that's still pretty significant considering the number of games. But you follow me anyway. So comments on the field. Let's go ahead and back and look at that. This is pretty interesting. Not so much at the top. It doesn't really surprise me that we saw a little bit more games were played overall. You start to see more and more separation there. I don't think that's really a surprise to anyone. I did want to comment on some heroes. I'm pretty impressed with Puffin. I've actually seen, this is on the Talishars, right, just running, getting some reps myself. I've seen some Puffins out there that are actually running some pretty cool, it's like a zipper hit, 0 to 60 boost. There's boost in there with the cogs. It's pretty neat. I'm pretty impressed with it. They're not really looking at trying to get 3 cogs for the aeronaut down. They're just kind of using them for attack reactions and what is a Cogworks dovetail. So that's a pretty interesting little build out there that, we talked about this headed into high seas, that beware of Puffin and her cogs, right? I think if you come in and people don't really have a bunch of reps on Puffin and they're not really used to attack reactions in the loosest sense, with the mechs, I think that catching has potential to catch people off guard. And I think that's probably where those two came from, as a really, really good player into a field that probably didn't see it coming. And I like it. We are starting to see Data Doll fall about where I thought she would. She's just too much variance, I think. And, the more rounds you have to play, and again, as you get more and more statistics into it, I think she's falling, kind of in that range that I expected it to. Dorinthea is underperforming where I thought her to. And Dromai is performing a little better than I expected her to. And those two things are probably not completely and utterly unrelated. I'm a little surprised that we didn't, after how well Dromai did last week, I'm a little surprised we didn't see a few more poppers. But, again, maybe just with the, with this Blitz season already being underway, folks are maybe on their decks and aren't pivoting a whole bunch. I mean, again, because, if you're looking at the top, you're responding to the top, are you going to look at Dromai and be scared of her? Maybe throw in one more popper, especially with the prisms kind of chasing behind. But I know for certain I've got poppers in my deck. I know that for certain. Going into the ones, not a lot to talk about there. I love that New Moon got a win. I love that Shiana got a win. And I absolutely love that Olympia got a win. The Azalea win does not surprise me. Azalea can do stupid things. Him being able to do stupid things across the whole tournament is a little surprising and impressive, but well within the realm of expectations. Olympia, if you were the Olympia player out there and you're watching us, let us know what you were running. Was it a Decimator build? I'm betting it was a Decimator build, but let us know. That would be really cool. And if anybody, maybe you don't have to be the one, if you were at that tournament, let us know. I bet it was Decimator, but could be Hatchets, So, all right, folks, I think that's going to sunset. I'm really excited headed into week 3, because week 3 being smaller and being at the end of the season could be chaos week. I don't think it's going to be enough chaos to LL anybody, but it could be really, really, really different donut next week, so to speak, to see where people land. So let me know your thoughts. If nothing else, my friends, go Commando.